In the old Benin Kingdom, where bronze gleamed brighter than gold and the Oba's word shaped destinies, a child was born in a village near the palace walls. The sky that night was restless. Thunder cracked without rain, and the sacred drums at the shrine of Ojuwu, the god of the underworld, beat by themselves. Her name was Idia. The village priestess declared at her naming, "She is born under the shadow of the moon. Not even the gods will dare oppose her destiny." Long before she became a queen, Idia was a young girl born in Igigudu, a town near Benin City. Her eyes were sharp, her mind keen, and her beauty unmatched. But it wasn't her looks that drew people to her, it was her spirit. At age 12, she fought off a wild bush pig that attacked the family's yam store. At 15, she cured a chief's only son of swollen eyes using only bark and prayer. By the time she turned 18, whispers had begun. That girl is not just a woman. She carries the breath of the ancestors. From a young age, Idia was curious about the herbs her grandmother used to heal the sick. She watched as leaves, roots, and smoke could soothe pain, or reveal truths in dreams. But what was unusual was her gift. When she touched someone, she could sense their illness. When she spoke, the winds listened. The people whispered, "This girl is touched by the gods." When she became of age, she was taken to Benin City as one of the maidens to be trained in palace customs. There, Oba Ozoluwa, the great warrior king of Benin, took notice of her. But Idia had no interest in being just another palace wife. She sought knowledge, not luxury. Oba Ozoluwa, known for his strength and countless wives, tried to win her heart. But the oracle warned him. If you take Idia, her son will fight for your throne. Her power will rival that of kings. She must not bear a prince. Fearing the prophecy, the king forbade her from marrying or bearing children. But love is a river that overflows its banks. Ozoluwa, defying the oracle, took Idia into his inner court, and soon she bore him a son, Prince Esigi. It was whispered that on the night Esigi was born, the moon turned blood red, and the palace drums beat on their own. The priests were terrified. But Idia smiled. This child will not destroy the kingdom, he will save it. Years passed. Oba Ozoluwa died. But instead of a smooth transition, the kingdom was thrown into chaos. Two sons claimed the throne. Esigi, son of Idia, the wise and spiritual prince. Ahuran, his elder half-brother from Udo, fierce and battle-hardened. Benin split into two. Warriors took sides. Blood filled the earth like rain. While Ahuran had the numbers, Esigi had the spirit. But even that was not enough. Ahuran controlled the western warriors, the river passage, and the priests of the Udo shrine. Esigi's palace grew quiet. Chiefs defected. Soldiers vanished. The Oba's palace, once filled with the sound of royal flutes, now echoed with dread. Then one night, as Esigi sat in darkness, Idia entered his chamber. She had shaved her head and rubbed her body with white chalk. Around her waist were charms made of monkey skulls and dried leaves, and in her hands, she held a sword glowing red from ritual fire. She said, "If you fear death, return to your mother's hut. But if you believe in this throne, follow me, and we shall write our names in the sky." And they followed her. While most queens would retreat to safety, Queen Idia prepared for war. Idia, with her shaved head, tied the sacred white cloth of war across her chest, and entered the sacred grove of Algun, the god of iron. "If I must bleed to protect this throne," she swore, "then let my blood be iron." She emerged with charms tied to her waist and fire in her eyes. At dawn, she stood before the soldiers and said, "Follow me, not as a woman, but as your general." And they did. She wasn't just a mother, she was a general. She donned armor beneath her wrappers, painted her face in chalk and blood, and whispered incantations before battle. "If my son must fight for his birthright, then I will fight beside him," she declared. Idia led troops of fierce women, trained in the ways of herbs, daggers, and deception. She used her knowledge of medicine to heal the wounded, and her spiritual gifts to foresee enemy ambushes. When Esigi was discouraged, she reminded him, "Oba no day fear. A king does not cry when the gods are watching." The battles were fierce. Ahuran's army was larger. His men were stronger. But Idia had something else, wisdom. The road to Udo was long and lined with traps. Ahuran's forces were camped along the riverbanks, guarded by charmers, archers, and warrior priests. But Idia had prepared. Before battle, she entered the forest and made sacrifice to the spirit of the river. She called upon her ancestors. Some say they appeared that night, riding on the backs of leopards, whispering battle plans into her ears. One night, she sneaked herbs into the enemy's river source. The soldiers fell sick. Confused. Weakened. At dawn, Esigi's army struck, swift as thunder. Ahuran was defeated. Esigi was crowned Oba of Benin. And beside him stood his mother, now known as Ioba, the first queen mother in Benin history. After Esigi became king, he did something never done before. He built his mother a palace of her own, the Egwi Ioba. He gave her a title, a court, servants, soldiers, and most importantly, power. Queen Idia became the guardian of the kingdom's spiritual secrets. She advised her son on diplomacy. She sat in councils. And when foreign powers, like the Portuguese traders, came to the kingdom, she watched them with eyes that missed nothing. Benin grew strong under Esigi. The city walls grew higher. Art flourished. Trade with Europe blossomed. But behind every decision was the whisper of Idia. After the war with the Igala kingdom, Queen Idia returned to Benin City not just as a queen mother, but as a living legend. The people lined the red earth roads, singing her praises. Children ran beside her horse-drawn litter, shouting, Ioba Idia! Ioba Idia! Queen Mother Idia! Oba Esigi, her son, declared. From this day, let it be known across the land, my mother shall be Ioba, Queen Mother, and her name shall be carved into the heart of this kingdom. And so, for the first time in Benin's long history, a mother was given her own palace in Usulu, her own warriors, her own council, and her own shrine. But peace, as always, did not last. Though Idia was loved by many, others feared her power. The chiefs of the Uzama, ancient kingmakers who had once controlled the palace, were uneasy. She is just a woman, they whispered. But she commands armies. She advises the Oba. She walks freely among the sacred altars. Some said she used magic charms and invisible warriors to win battles. Others said she had the power to speak with the spirits of the ancestors, and even the dead kings obeyed her. One night, a secret meeting was held among jealous nobles. They vowed to weaken her influence, to take back the power they had lost. But Idia already knew. Her mirrors did not just show her reflection, they showed shadows of betrayal. To protect herself and her son, Idia visited an ancient forest seer called Nwand, deep in the grove of Udo. There, she sought the eyes of Uwa, a hidden relic said to grant the bearer sight into every plot, every enemy, every deception. But the forest tested her. She had to walk through the valley of silence, where no sound could be made. She had to stand before the talking tree, who asked her, would you sacrifice your son for the safety of your kingdom? And finally, she entered the river of memory, where she saw visions of her past. Her mother warning her, her father's murder, her young son crying during his coronation. She passed all the tests. The seer gave her the eyes of Uwa, 2 tiny ivory stones. Place these in the mouth of a leopard skull, the seer said. It will speak to you. But only the truth. Idia returned home. In her private chamber, behind veils and smoke, she placed the stones in a leopard's skull. That night, the skull whispered names, enemies, spies, and hidden threats within the palace. She was ready. Among her enemies was a rival priestess named Idgun, who once served Oba Ozolua and felt that a woman had no right to sit beside the Oba in council. Idgun was known as the woman of the serpent gourd, for she kept a sacred calabash that held 7 live vipers, cursed never to die. She plotted to destroy Idia through spiritual warfare. One market day, a strange mist covered the Oba's palace. Chickens stopped clucking. Drummers fell silent. And warriors found snakes crawling in their sheets. Idia, calm as always, entered the Oba's inner room, took her ritual staff, and began to chant. She called upon the spirit of Olukan, the great goddess of the deep, and the leopard spirit that guarded her bloodline. Lightning cracked. The calabash shattered in Edigun's shrine miles away. The vipers turned on her, biting their own mistress. She was never seen again. From that day, no one challenged Oba Idia without trembling. As Oba Esiji grew older, he begged his mother to stay in the palace and guide him. But Idia knew her time was drawing near. But Idia was more than a ruler. She was also a priestess. It is said that in her shrine, she spoke to spirits. That when a child was sick, she could look into their eyes and know the cure. That she carved symbols on palm leaves and read the future in fire. She protected Benin not only from enemies, but from curses, famines, and plagues. Some feared her. Others worshipped her. And when she passed into the spirit world, the entire kingdom mourned for 7 days. Drums fell silent. Dancers wore white. Even the wind seemed to slow. After her death, Esiji commissioned the finest bronze workers to create a memorial for her, the famous ivory mask of Idia. It was not just a portrait, it was a symbol of wisdom, strength, and motherhood. The mask features a serene, wise face. Rows of Portuguese heads, showing her dealings with foreigners. Carvings of mudfish, symbols of spiritual power and transformation. This mask became the royal emblem for generations of Obas. To this day, it is one of the most famous African artworks in the world, stolen by the British during the 1897 invasion, and displayed in European museums. Yet her spirit remains in Benin. From childhood, Idia was different. While other girls played with beads and goods, she sat beside her mother during sacred rites, learning how to read omens from kola nuts and crush herbs to calm angry spirits. Her father, a retired warrior, taught her how to wield a dagger and move without making a sound. The end.